30 in the Queen City, Boomer Von Cannon, WBT.
Hot. It's 5:05 and welcome into a Monday edition of the Carolina Journal News Hour on News Talk 1110 and 99.3 WBT. I'm Nick Craig. Good morning to you. Hopefully you enjoyed your extended Thanksgiving weekend and break if you were able to get one of those. Well, we start off this morning with some national news centered around Washington, D.C., Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. President Joe Biden yesterday pardoned his son Hunter after his son was convicted in two separate federal cases earlier this year. The announcement was made by the White House on Sunday night, late last night. The pardon applies to offenses against the United States that Hunter Biden has committed or may have committed from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. That was yesterday. It reads, quote, "Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I have kept my word even as I have watched my son be selectively and unfairly prosecuted," the president wrote in a statement. He went on to claim that his son was, quote, "treated differently by prosecutors without aggregating factors like the use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser. People almost never are brought to trial on felony charges for solely how they filled out a gun form," the president added. "Those who were late in paying their taxes because of serious addiction but paid them back with the interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently." Biden also referred to his son's battle with addiction and blamed, quote, "raw politics" for the unraveling of Hunter Biden's plea deal, which took place earlier this year. He said, quote, "There's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution," the 82-year-old Biden wrote. "In trying to break Hunter, they tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. I hope Americans will understand why a father and as a president I would come to this decision," Biden's statement concluded. There's going to be a lot of chatter, as you can imagine, about this throughout the day. Again, our top story this morning, President Joe Biden, after years of saying he would not pardon his son, has pardoned Hunter Biden. We'll continue to track that fallout throughout the day. You can keep up to date with it with all of our shows right here on News Talk 1110 and 99.3 WBT. Taking a look at some other statewide news this morning, and well, it was a busy hurricane season for the state of North Carolina, and with the start of meteorological winter, which began yesterday, Sunday, December 1st, we are now saying farewell to what was a very busy hurricane season in 2024. The state saw impacts from Hurricane Debby on August 8th and 9th as it prompted nearly 36 tornado warnings across the eastern half of the state. There was an EF3 tornado in Wilson County, an EF2 tornado in Greene County, and an EF0 tornado in Pender County. That was near the Maple Hill area. While the inland areas saw tornado reports, the coastal areas saw high winds and rains, which actually caused a couple of houses in the Outer Banks to collapse. The remnants of Debby dumped 8 inches of rain in early August across the eastern half of the state and caused some flooding across some of that area as well. Looking at some other storms, we had potential Tropical Cyclone 8, which caused significant flooding in southeastern North Carolina as portions of Carolina Beach and Southport saw 12 to 20 inches of rain, breaking all-time daily and monthly rainfall records. That storm, not even named, again, potential Tropical Cyclone 8, left some big impacts in southeastern North Carolina. And of course, flashing back to just a couple of months ago, it was Hurricane Helene, which was one of the most devastating storms to hit western North Carolina in the history of record keeping. After several days of rain from previous weather systems and summertime storms amounted to historic levels of flooding before Helene, impacts then from that storm left dire situations, not only for property, but taking over 100 lives in North Carolina. Helene is now the deadliest hurricane to affect the continental United States since Hurricane Katrina all the way back in 2005, with more than 150 direct fatalities, as most of those occurred in North and South Carolina. Minus tracking storm names and death totals for this year, which were high not only here in the state of North Carolina. This season, as of right now, is the second costliest and is likely to go up from there at $222 billion. As more data and the price of damage continues to come in, there is a very real possibility that this year might be the most expensive hurricane season in the record keeping here in the United States. In the last 5 years, 2022 and 2021 also came in the top 5 most expensive disasters. Those years were under $200 billion, as the cost of doing repairs and reconstruction of areas does continue to take place. The hurricane season continues to be a top story, not just for the coastal areas. You could understand it if you were living in portions of eastern North Carolina, but with the devastation out west, I think a lot more folks this cycle, this go-around, are understanding and realizing the importance of being prepped, at least as prepped as you can be, for these natural disasters, making sure that you've got a valid food supply on hand, you've got enough medicine, fresh water, food, everything that you need for a couple of days of no power, no access to infrastructure. The hurricane season in 2025 will kick off in May. It runs all the way through the month of December, and we made it through almost the entire list of names, just 2 left on the list for the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. And with that, still discussion about spending in portions of western North Carolina. The North Carolina General Assembly is back this week. Taking a look at the legislative calendar, there is a session for both the House and the Senate that reconvened today. It is not immediately clear what exactly is going to be on that agenda, if anything. The House does have House and Senate does have about 2 weeks where they can get some work done here ahead of their break for Christmas and ahead of the swearing in of new members of the General Assembly. That will take place in early January. There is some potential veto overrides that we'll be looking at. And then, of course, up at the lame duck session in Washington, D.C., there is more calls for hurricane relief as well. We continue to track those details, and we'll pass any movement along to you as it is pertinent to western North Carolina and the massive recovery efforts that continue as snow is falling across the mountains seemingly day by day now. Very cold temperatures making a terrible situation even worse for those folks still struggling in western North Carolina. We'll keep an eye on it right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour. It's now 5:13, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Time to get a look at the roadways early on this Monday morning with Boomer Von Cannon.
Hey, thank you, Nick. Good Monday.
It's 5:20. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. We are streaming live this morning on our Carolina Journal YouTube channel. You can watch along live on the show there. You can also check out our podcast if you miss any portion of the program, Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 a.m. Just search in your favorite podcast app for the Carolina Journal News Hour or visit WBT.com and hover over the podcast tab and take the show with you on your own time. Well, it is Cyber Monday, the most anticipated day for e-commerce markets and online shoppers around the world. This comes just a few days after the Black Friday shopping frenzy. All of this in anticipation of Christmas, the busy holiday buying season, as millions of consumers worldwide bring Cyber Week to a close, as this is essentially seen as the end of the busy shopping season from starting on Black Friday and ending on Cyber Monday. Consumers will spend a total of $12.4 billion on Cyber Monday. Cyber Monday sales are expected to reach $13.2 billion this year. Taking a look at some of the stats from last year's Cyber Monday, listen to this. 200.4 million Americans shopped during Cyber Monday last year. The sale saw a 43% increase in spending compared to that same number in 2022. The average U.S. buyer activity increases 512% during Cyber Monday. And I found this to be an interesting stat. And the question is, will you be spending this much? Buyers in the United States spend on average $650 during Cyber Week, which goes on for the next couple of days. That's a lot more than I was expecting. And 88% of online retailers and businesses offer Cyber Monday deals. So you've got, of course, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, those sales going on for a couple of days, a very busy holiday shopping season. We did have the opportunity last week to chat and learn a little bit about those holiday sales and what things were going to be looking like in the state of North Carolina. A great opportunity to catch up with Andy Nielsen from the North Carolina Retail Merchant Association, saying that, well, things look good for North Carolina as we head into the busy holiday shopping season. You can catch that interview in our podcast from last week or read the story over on our website, carolinajournal.com. Speaking of holiday spending, if you enjoyed your Turkey Day, did you know that North Carolina produces more than 1 billion pounds of turkey? Each year, an estimated 46 million turkeys are consumed on Thanksgiving Day. More than 85% of U.S. turkey production takes place in just 13 states, and North Carolina, well, is one of the major producers, working hard to support millions of Thanksgiving tables nationwide, with more than 90% of Americans observing the tradition each year. North Carolina has a massive agricultural background. It's our largest production item in the state, ag-related business, with more than 5,700 farms owned by families producing poultry and other poultry products like eggs. North Carolina's poultry industry generates 148,000 jobs, with the state's turkey sector valued at $1.1 billion in the year 2022. According to U.S. data, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, North Carolina produces 5% fewer turkeys than they did last year at 27.5 million. Minnesota produces more live turkeys, roughly 33.5 million for the state there. And although Minnesota raised more turkeys, North Carolina came out on top with having the highest amount of total production in 2024. The average bird size was higher than the average, with them roughly being about 36.9 pounds each turkey. That's a big bird right there. Therefore, North Carolina accounts for over 15% of the nation's total turkey output by weight, while Minnesota accounts for 15.1%. Both of those states combine more than 30% of the country's total turkey population. In total, the United States produces an average of 5.11 pounds of turkey, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Agricultural Statistic Survey, which takes place every year. So if you were enjoying your turkey feast over the last couple of days, likely still working your way through some leftovers maybe for lunch, well, 15% of those turkeys produced right here in the great state of North Carolina. Taking a look at some other news this morning across the state, a recent study by Class Central ranks North Carolina 8th among the top U.S. states for pursuing a tech career. This is using data from the U.S. Department of Education College Scorecard. The study analyzes factors such as percentages of tech degrees, cost of attendance, and median earnings in that sector, giving North Carolina a score of 5.4 out of 10. The state stands out for its robust tech education, with 174 institutions offering tech programs, most of that coming through the very robust community college system here in the state of North Carolina, with median earnings of $59,303 a year for tech graduates. That's over 67% higher than the $35,500 median for all fields in the state. Incentives like the North Carolina Community College System's partnership with Google and other major tech institutions further enhance those opportunities. In the case of Google, they offer free tech training through the community college system, including Google's Career Certificate program to students statewide. Class Central's CEO emphasized the appeal of tech careers for flexibility, high salaries, and comprehensive benefits. The state's efforts to expand access to tech education aligned with its strong performance in the ranking, where somehow Alaska actually came along as the top. When you look at all of the states and the report cards that come out and digging into all of the numbers, it's actually Alaska that comes forward with the top state for that. Some of that is probably due, according to the study, to the remoteness of the tech centrals in a state like Alaska. But if you look at the top five, it's Alaska, Wyoming, Utah, Kentucky, and Maryland. Those are the top five states. Again, North Carolina notching its belt at number 8. West Virginia follows them at 9, North Dakota at 10. So as we look at this, North Carolina, really the only state in the Southeast, unless you consider Kentucky portions of the Southeast, in that sector here, that total index 5.4. The average annual cost for tech education in North Carolina is about $14,000. North Carolina has the top number of schools anywhere in the nation for tech-related careers at 174. And again, that very large median income, $59,303. That is way above the median earnings here in the state of North Carolina, which is just $35,000 a year. It's also one of the reasons we find ourselves near the top of the list in CNBC's #1 state for business. We have a highly educated workforce, especially in the tech sector. Great news continuing here for the state of North Carolina. We'll keep an eye on it right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour. 529 News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Time to get another look at traffic with the great Boomer Von Cannon.
Hey, Nick, thank you, sir.
Huh?
It's 5:36. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour on a Monday morning. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. I'm Nick Craig. Good morning to you. Our top national story this morning, breaking news last night. President Joe Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. This is after Hunter Biden was convicted in two separate federal cases earlier this year. The announcement, which Joe Biden said would not happen, he would not be pardoning his son, was made by the White House on Sunday night. The pardon applies to offenses against the United States that Hunter Biden, quote, has committed or may have committed from January the 1st, 2014 to December the 1st, 2024. Biden wrote in his lengthy letter, quote, "Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I have watched my son be selectively and unfairly prosecuted." The president went on to claim that his son was treated differently by prosecutors and said, quote, "Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form," end quote. You'll remember back to this story. Hunter Biden filled out this gun form in Delaware, checking a box that he was not an active user of illicit drugs or narcotics. He was, in fact, at the time. Biden continued by saying those who were late in paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. Biden also referenced his son's battle with addiction and blamed, quote, "raw politics" for the unraveling of Hunter's plea deal earlier this year, saying, quote, "There's been an effort to break Hunter, who's been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution," the 82-year-old president wrote. "In trying to break Hunter, they tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it would stop here. Enough is enough. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision." The political fallout from this is going to be something that is going to be very interesting to watch in the waning days of the Biden administration. The swearing in of President-elect Donald Trump will take place in about 5-6 weeks or so up in Washington, D.C. We'll continue to track those details and provide updates right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour. Well, here's an interesting story for you. And reading the headline, charitable giving saw a significant downturn in North Carolina. Doesn't necessarily sound great, but there might be a reason for that. That's according to the North Carolina Secretary of State's Charitable Solicitation Licensing Division in their annual report. CLS is the acronym for that. Licensed charities collected $27 million during the fiscal year 23 to 24, a sharp drop from the $58 million from the previous year. Fundraising campaigns yielded $16.4 million, which is a major decline, down from $43.9 million, and the percentages of donations going directly to charitable programs fell 60%, a decline of nearly 50% year over year, according to the Secretary of State Elaine Marshall. She attributed the drop to economic pressures and encouraged donors to research charities to maximize the impact of their contributions. She also acknowledged the challenges faced by nonprofits managing increased needs with ever fewer resources. The report noted that national and multi-state campaigns saw a 28% decline in the portion of donations passed directly to the charities. So with that, you donate to a large national or multi-state group. They trickle the money down to a local charity, a 28% decrease there, with only 53.4% of each dollar reaching those intended causes. Marshall explained that expenses like education efforts or early fundraising costs could have affected those reported numbers. North Carolinians were encouraged to support charities through financial contributions or by volunteering. Some of those volunteering efforts, of course, also don't show up in the raw dollar amount raised. Marshall highlighted the importance of reviewing a charity's performance over several years for a clearer understanding of its efficiency. The Secretary of State's office and this charitable solicitation licensing division, the CLS division, licenses charities that raise over $50,000 a year annually or use a professional fundraising service to raise funds, ensuring compliance with state law. However, federal law limits its ability to penalize organizations for high administrative expenses. One of the other notes in the Secretary of State's report was that many of these charities fill the front half of the year with their expenses, and due to accounting and how they go through their financial books, they may not actually tally and total all of their financials and all of the money that they've raised until after the end of the fiscal year, which ended a couple of months ago for 2024. So that also could be a reason that this decline is existing right now. Obviously, some of the things ongoing in Western North Carolina, that will not be shown and seen until next year's financial report. And again, many of those charities falling under that $50,000 threshold. Many of these just random spin-up individuals collecting money, buying goods, and airdropping them, driving them in trucks out to Western North Carolina. So we'll keep an eye on what this report looks like for next year. But as we head into the giving season, and as we talked about Cyber Monday today, billions of dollars spent, you are, of course, encouraged to support local charities, statewide charities that are doing great work throughout the Tar Heel State. And again, as the Secretary of State noted, making sure that you research those charities and making sure that you're giving money to reputable causes. You can read a full copy of that report plus some more data. Teresa Opeka's got the story this morning. It's over at carolinajournal.com. It's now 5:43, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Time to get another look at traffic on this Monday morning with Boomer Von Cannon.
Thank you, Nick. Looking good.
It's 5:50. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Good Monday morning to you. With the start of meteorological winter, which began yesterday on December the 1st, we say farewell to what was a very busy hurricane season, Atlantic hurricane season for the year 2024. The state started off with impacts from Debbie on August 8th and 9th as it prompted nearly 36 tornado warnings in eastern North Carolina. An EF3 tornado in Wilson County, an EF2 tornado in Snow Hill, that's in Greene County, and an EF0 in Pender County near Maple Hill. And while the other inland areas saw tornado reports as well, the coastal areas got battered with high winds and rains, which actually caused a few homes to collapse in the Outer Banks. The remnants of Debbie dumped 8 inches of rain across the central part of the state and caused some flooding there. The storm damage ranked up to about $26 billion. Potential Tropical Cyclone 8, or PTC 8, an unnamed storm, caused significant flooding in southeastern North Carolina, with portions of Carolina Beach and Southport seeing between 12 and 20 inches of rain, breaking all-time daily and monthly rainfall records. That affected the southeastern portion, and it was just a couple of months ago where Helene, one of the most devastating storms to hit the United States as a whole, absolutely plastered portions of western North Carolina. That storm came after several days of rain from previous fronts and summertime storms in the mountains that amounted to historic levels of flooding before the storm even impacted the area. With that, impacts to property and taking over 100 lives in the state, Helene was the deadliest hurricane to affect the continental United States since Katrina in 2005, killing more than 150 people from the state of Florida up to North Carolina, most of those deaths occurring in both North and South Carolina. Minus tracking storm names and the loss of life for this year, this is the second costliest hurricane season on record at $222 billion, and that number, well, still rising. As more data and prices from the damage continue to come in, there's a very real possibility that the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season might be the most expensive in history. In the last 5 years, 2022 and 2021 also came in as the top 5 most expensive disasters, as those years were both of those years, under $200 billion. A very deadly and very costly hurricane season, and that damage estimate likely to continue to rise as recovery efforts still to this day, 2 months later, continue out in western North Carolina. There's a lot of talk about that here in North Carolina with the General Assembly, and of course at Washington, D.C. in the lame duck session in Congress that runs for a couple of more weeks. We'll keep an eye on any movement in regards to relief and pass those details along to you right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour. Well, Governor-elect Josh Stein made his way yesterday to ABC News and their This Week program to discuss, and was asked a litany of questions about his win and what he looks forward to doing in the state of North Carolina. He first talked about Democrats in the state really outperforming what we saw nationwide, with former President Trump, now President-elect Trump, winning 7 of the 7 swing states. Josh Stein commented on a rather successful election night for Democrats in North Carolina. Take a listen.
Our win, which was the strongest win in 44 years for a Democratic governor candidate, but we defended the Secretary of State and Attorney General's office. We picked up the Lieutenant Governor and Superintendent of Public Instruction. We've likely prevailed in the only Supreme Court race. We won the only congressional competitive congressional race in the South, and we broke the supermajority in the State House. So it was an unfortunate night for Democrats across this country, but North Carolina was a bright spot, and we're proud of what we accomplished here.
A bright spot in North Carolina, according to current Attorney General, soon-to-be Governor Josh Stein. He also talked about the continued relief out in western North Carolina and working with the incoming Trump administration to make that a reality.
I want to do everything I can for the people of North Carolina. And right now, folks in western North Carolina are really suffering. Hurricane Helene left unimaginable devastation in its wake. Many lives lost, thousands of buildings destroyed, homes and small businesses, infrastructure, critical infrastructure, water and sewer, wastewater, highways, parts of Interstate 40 fell into the river. So we are looking at a multi-billion dollars, $53 billion in damages. We have an appropriations request before Congress for $25 billion. I was up there in Washington 2 weeks ago with Governor Cooper, meeting with Senators Tillis and Budd and a number of congressional offices. And I am eager to work with the Trump administration to deliver for the people of Western North Carolina who need the help of the federal government and our state government to get back up on their feet.
Eager to work with the Trump administration, and regardless of whether Congress does anything in the next couple of weeks ahead of their recess in regards to hurricane relief, there will be many more dollars that need to be spent. And of course, that will be between Democrat Governor Josh Stein and, of course, Republican President Donald Trump. Now into some federal politics with that. The question from the ABC News host was, will you work with Trump's plan for a mass deportation? Listen to Stein's answer to that.
Trump's promised to have a mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. Is North Carolina going to cooperate with that deportation plan?
Well, one thing about President Trump is he says a lot, and then you don't know what the actual policy behind the bluster is going to be. And so I have to wait to see what he actually proposes as opposed to what he says through Twitter or any other social media platform.
But you don't rule out working with him to deport some of those undocumented immigrants?
Right now, if folks break the law and harm North Carolinians, they get deported as it is. Folks who are law-abiding, deporting them is not a priority at all. They are instrumental to our communities. They're instrumental to our economy.
That's Attorney General Josh Stein on ABC News' This Week. That's going to do it for a Monday edition of the Carolina Journal News Hour. WBT News is next, followed by Good Morning BT. We're back tomorrow morning, 5 to 6 a.m. right here on News Talk 1110 and 99.3 WBT.